You have probably heard this your whole life. Renting is throwing money away. It is one of the most repeated pieces of financial advice in existence. That phrase carries a lot of weight. If you rent, you might feel a subtle guilt, like you are falling behind homeowners who are supposedly building guaranteed wealth. But that guilt is often based on a flawed calculation. A rent payment and a mortgage payment are very different financial instruments, and comparing them directly misses most of the math. Building wealth requires looking past the monthly bill to see which option actually puts you in a better net worth position at the end of your stay. When you run the actual numbers, the answer is not always buying a house. To figure out your best move, we have to look past the top-line payments and account for objective data and the variables in your local market. Every choice here involves a trade-off. You are weighing capital mobility and lifestyle flexibility against leverage stability and geographic commitment. Let's start with the incomplete comparison. When you write a rent check, you know exactly what your housing costs for the month are, but a mortgage payment is only the baseline. The full cost of owning a home includes a massive layer of unrecoverable expenses that sit right on top of your principal and interest. Above base mortgage principal, add property taxes, typically 1 to 1.5% annually. Then budget 1% for maintenance. Finally, stack on homeowner's insurance, plus any PMI or HOA fees. On a $400,000 home, these unrecoverable extras cost $11,000 a year, or $917 a month. These are mandatory, permanent expenses. They do not contribute a single cent to your home equity. Contrast that with renting. Your primary costs are your monthly rent and nominal renter's insurance. There are no surprise roof replacements or property tax hikes to cover. The reality is that homeowners throw money away too. They are simply paying a steep financial premium for structural control and absolute customization, rather than building pure home equity. But there is an even larger factor in real estate math that most people skip entirely: the down payment. An $80,000 down payment offers two choices: buy, locking that $80,000 into physical equity, unavailable unless you sell, or rent, keeping that $80,000 liquid to invest in an index fund. Over 20 years at a 7% return, that invested $80,000 compounds to $305,000. That missed $225,000 in growth is the real cost of buying. It is the invisible opportunity cost that never shows up in a standard mortgage calculator. Buying a home forces you to sacrifice the compounding liquidity of the stock market in exchange for leveraged real estate appreciation. The winner of that trade-off depends entirely on where you live. National real estate averages are practically useless for your personal financial decisions. The price-to-rent ratio compares local housing objectively. Divide a home's purchase price by a comparable annual rent. Below 15, common in the South and Midwest, buying is highly efficient. Above 20, typical in major coastal cities, renting is often the financially optimal choice. You can estimate these unrecoverable owning costs using the 5% rule, assuming 1% for property tax, 1% for routine maintenance, and 3% for capital cost, the money your equity would have earned if invested in the market. On a $400,000 home, that is $20,000 a year. If you can rent a comparable home for less than that, renting is likely the better decision in the medium term. And the short term matters significantly because of the massive friction required to enter and exit a property. When you buy, closing costs eat up 2 to 5% of the purchase price. When you sell, agent fees and closing costs take another 6 to 8%. This timeline shows why time is your only defense against those transaction fees. Starting 8 to 13% in the negative, you need years of appreciation to break even. In most markets, it takes 5 to 7 years for equity gains to finally beat renting. If you move in under 5 years, transaction friction mathematically destroys your wealth. Geographic stagnation is a prerequisite to winning with real estate. This scorecard lays out exactly where you stand. Buying a home can be a massive wealth generator or a mediocre trap. It depends entirely on price, timing, and longevity. You fit the optimal buyer profile if you stay in one location for 7 or more years and you have your 20% down payment ready. Buying also makes sense if your local price-to-rent ratio is below 15 and your total housing costs stay under 28% of your gross income. You fit the optimal renter profile if you anticipate a job change, relationship shift, or city move within the next 5 years. Renting is also the optimal move if you live in a city with a price-to-rent ratio above 20, and you invest your down payment into the market instead. Renting is a way to pay for immediate shelter, lifestyle flexibility, and the option to let your capital work elsewhere. You cannot rely on generic generational advice to make a 6-figure decision. You have to run the full math on your local market and your actual life timeline. Compare the total costs. Know your local ratios. The best financial decision is the one that strategically fits your life, your mobility, and your capacity to invest the difference.